Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our March safety update and webinar. So the host today are myself, Gary Rowe, and of course Andrea Rowe, who's joining me I think, King Lake, joining us online from King Lake this morning. So welcome, Andrea. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Gary. That's right. Yeah, I'm here in a lovely park in Kinglake on my way back
Okay.
from the Kinglake distillery this morning.
Okay, lovely. Oh, well, that's good, Andrea. So today what we're going to look at is noise cancelling AirPods and headphones, but using them in PPE, noise protection areas. And can you do this and under what circumstances? So Andrea will tell us about how the question that came to her shortly. We're also going to look at when do you need child car restraints, at what ages, and we're going to outline that for you. And we're going to look at an update on the workplace manslaughter convictions. So the first actual conviction in Victoria, and we'll also look back a year or two at the first conviction, manslaughter conviction that was in Queensland. And we're going to show you some interesting common elements between both these, which might be a bit surprising or scary. We're going to look at the economics of safety from the famous economist Thomas Sowell. Bear with me, I've read a couple of his books of recent times, and I'm trying to extract some workplace safety related issues from that, Andrea. So that's what I'll be trying to show. And I'll finish off with the risk of barbecue wire brushes, which I think Sarah of our office, Andrea, brought to me, and I think is still timely. We've got some hot weather coming over this long weekend coming up. So that's what. So before we actually kick off with the first topic, let's look at question of the week. And you'll know this one, Andrea, because you and I have discussed this with clients many times. Question 1, what legally constitutes a trip hazard? Okay, so we're going to come back to this near the end of the segment. And
I encourage everyone, you can start to type your answers into the chat as well, if you like, while we continue with the webinar.
Indeed. And if people just want to wait quietly for, we'll give them the answers a little bit later on. But if they've got some ideas, that'd be good, Andrea. And our second question is, can we use non-fluorescent uniforms as our high vis? And I think that's a really good question. Came from some of our friends in the agricultural sector. And you can probably see, largely green or some other colour. And you can see an orange one there. It's orange and you might think bright, but it is not fluorescent. So that's really the question today. So let's look at noise cancelling AirPods, etc. So tell us, what was the question posed to you recently, Andrea?
Well, actually, what I saw was several workers were working up on a rooftop with drills, and they were, drilling into the metal, and their procedures said that they needed to wear hearing protection. And what I noticed they were wearing is AirPods, similar to what I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
And I asked them where their hearing protectors were, and they said, well, actually, I've got the AirPods set to noise cancellation mode.
So that's the real question, is does noise cancelling cancel out the noise and make it safe? That's really the issue, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah. So that's, to me, that's a superb question, because you might reasonably think that if this is noise cancelling, it's at somehow magically dropping the noise level.
And it feels like that if you've used, from your mobile phone, you can actually choose noise cancelling option, and you notice the difference between allowing the noise through. And when you put noise cancelling, you do actually stop hearing
the other noises. Yeah. So what we can tell you is that headphones, noise cancelling headphones, as you can see here in the image on the left hand side, the yellow ones and the black box, are from our good friends at 3M, who really good science-based PPE providers and providers of lots of other equipment in the workplace. Their 3M brand Paltor and WorkTunes are actually certified to the Australian standard AS 1270, which is for hearing protection. And they not only provide the hearing protection that you need for that hearing zone, but will, as you pointed out, Andrew, with the noise cancelling, you can actually, via the microphone, talk to people, and you don't have to take the headphones off to hear people talk to you. Or if there's an emergency alarm or a beeper on a forklift approaching you, you can hear it over through the headset, but you're not going to be exposed to noise above what you've specified for that area. So we normally know we'll have hearing protection in any zone above 85 decibels, dBA, and most of our clients do this above 80 decibels to, precautionary. So you can use those. But unfortunately, the earpods on the right, whilst they cancel the noise and make you think that this is lower, you can see there is no protection around the ear to stop the noise getting in, like either earplugs or earphones as shown here. And so the harmful noise gets in, but the noise cancelling earpods are providing you with what your music or whatever it is you're getting through the earpods. It could be a telephone discussion.
Well, that's right. The
Yeah.
noise cancelling, it's designed to block out the noises so that you can, comfortably listen to your
Yeah.
music or the conversation.
Yeah, that's it. But they provide no physical protection from the harmful energy of noise. So let's think of noise as energy waves coming into the ear, and it's not stopping those, but it's masking them. So the earpods are masking them so you can hear your conversation that you want. So if you want to talk, have telephone discussions, and hear other things, and maybe music as well while you're working, then it's the headphones, like those 3M Peltor or WorkTunes, you should be looking for. And you can do that, and you can talk to people, and they can Bluetooth to your phone as well, if that's acceptable in the work areas that you're in, to do that. So that's the essence of
I
it,
guess,
Andrea.
Gary, I've just reminded that, anytime you need hearing protection, you should be looking for an Australian standards
Yeah,
certified actual hearing protector.
yeah,
So it can be as simple as just those squishy earplugs that you put in that
yes,
will protect your hearing if you need. But if you
yeah,
want to enjoy the music, you can look at
yeah,
something like the um, WorkTunes
yeah.
headset.
Yeah, correct. So there you go, folks. That's the answer to that one. So you can't let people in your hearing protection zones just wear ear pods, as you can see here on the right. They would need to have an appropriate set of hearing protection to AS 1270. So it will be the earplugs or the earphones in that case. Um, so the real purpose of Baby on Board, I came across just a brief article, and somebody had suggested that people put these in their car. So if there's an accident, it's a warning to the emergency services to search for their baby in the car wreckage or whatever. And I came across the answer. It is not for emergency services. These came from emergency services as the answer, because they've already been trained to search every vehicle if there's a motor vehicle accident, for occupants, babies, animals, etc. So they don't need the baby on board sign. And so it's merely suggested that it's to indicate to other drivers and motorists on the road, you've got precious cargo on board. And Andrea, you've got lovely young boys and our grandkids.
Well,
I get this.
I think these signs that they actually, I feel that they also are a bit of an indicator to the other drivers that you might have a little bit of a distraction
Oh,
while you're on the
okay.
road with possibly noisy baby or children on board
Okay.
too.
I didn't think of the distraction. I just thought they don't want me to bump into the back of them because they've got children in there. And I get that. So if there's precious cargo on board, we see your sign and we'll hopefully show a little bit more patience with you or tolerance and maybe a bit more clearance. But they're not needed for emergencies. The emergency services are all trained, fire brigade, and SES, police, etc. They will always search the vehicle for occupants. So that's not what it's needed for. But for the reasons we've just pointed out, I think makes good sense, and that's okay. So let's look at child car restraint. So we're sort of on the child car restraint era at the moment, and I keep having to remember myself and talk to my wife or to Andrew and others. Oh, gee, what? And ask my grandchildren, how old are you? Are you allowed in the front seat or not? Or what type of seat should you have? So let's have a quick look. Three main categories. So firstly, anchored child seat with harness. So if they're under 6 months old, it's also to be rear-facing capsule. So it's rear-facing. That's unusual. I know it's a nuisance when you've got babies, but that's what it requires. But now from 6 months up to 7 years, forward-facing anchored seat. So it's a tethered seat, tethered at the top with its own individual harness. So this is not using the car seat belts. So typically from 7 years old, it'll be a booster seat using the car seat belts. And so I guess most people, as their children get from 7 years old, that's where you're up to. But the best advice is, or the best practice is, even if they're over 7, but not yet 145 centimetres tall, for a number of reasons, which we've got in our March newsletter. So we list what those reasons are. But it's basically the fit of the seatbelt around the hips and over the shoulder and not cutting into the neck of the child. It's ideally they need to be at least 145 centimetres tall. Otherwise, stick to your tethered seat for a bit longer. But generally from 7, they can be in a booster seat with the car seat belt. So that's the essence of it. So then the other question is when.
And Gary, I just wanted to share the importance of these recommendations is based around, especially around the front seat, is
Yes.
that the fragile children's faces aren't ready to face the impact of an airbag if needed.
Okay.
And they can suffer a lot more damage. So those airbags are designed for the structure and the bone strength of an adult. And
Yes.
so if a young child the airbag is activated, it can actually cause them a lot more damage, even though it might save them.
That's a nice added point I hadn't had in the research and the article that I came across, Andrew, for resourcing the answers for this question. So coming back to the front seat, so Andrew has now told us partly the reason why. So from 7 years of age, generally they can go in the front. So you'll notice above, from 7 years, they're now in a booster with the car seat belt. But then there's also, so they need that. But if they're under 7 and there's no rear seat, so for example, a sports car, can they go in the front seat? Or if it's not a sports car, but all the rear seats are already used by other children under 7, they can go into the front. But you'll notice here, if they're under 7, it says it still needs the top tether on that either booster seat or harness seat. And so if that's the case, I'm not aware of any sports cars that will actually have the top tether. So it's almost impossible to have children under 7 in the front seat. So essentially from 7 years of age. So there's the essential answers. So under 7, you've got the capsule under 6 months, under 7 anchored seat with the harness. From 7 years of age, they can now be in a booster seat with a car seat belts in essence. So there you go. And also in the front seat with that same booster. So that's the child car restraints. So moving through to, I think, an important subject, and this is evolving, I think, workplace manslaughter update, Andrea. And I think you pointed out to me the Vic one, and I've also got today the first Queensland manslaughter conviction. So we've got 2 of the first convictions, one in Victoria just recently, and the one that occurred a couple of years ago in Queensland. So Queensland are a bit ahead of us with the conviction. But let's just have a look. So the first personal and company convictions for manslaughter in Victoria and Queensland. Just to remind you, the maximum penalties for workplace manslaughter in Victoria is 19 million and 25 years jail if convicted. That's maximum, not what people typically will get, as you'll see. And Queensland, 10 million and 20 years jail. And Andrew, this might lead you to believe, gee, maybe we should work in Queensland because the penalties are lower. But you'll see in a moment, while the penalties may be lower in Queensland, they're actually applying them and actually sending people to jail, whereas the one in Victoria is a little bit different. So let's have a look. So the first Victorian manslaughter conviction involved a forklift with the load raised, as you can see in the little image here. So Universal Stone and Marble at Somerton, this is their trading name, not their legal entity. So back in October of 2021, a worker was crushed by a raised load falling off a forklift So here's a forklift being maneuvered while the load is raised, which is anyone who knows about forklift safety or got a forklift license know you to keep the load as close as possible to the ground. It was also going down forward down a slope and moving across the slope, Andrew. Can you believe? So they've added all three bad practice components. The forklift was driven unsafely by the director. So those three breaches of good practice. So when it got to court, so that's October 2021 is when the tragic accident occurred, and the load fell off and crushed and killed a worker. The company was fined just last month $1.3 million in order to pay $120,000 compensation to the family. Not much compensation for the family if you really think about it, but they also get all of the benefits, death benefits out of workers' comp. So it's not as if that's their total payment to the family, but nothing will ever bring the deceased worker back. But that's what the court ordered. And the director who was actually driving the forklift, so it's actually a director who, not a small company, stepped in, was driving it, was convicted and given a 2-year corrective order to do 200 hours unpaid work and to complete a forklift course. Now, it's not a license. It's silent in the court case, Andrea, whether he had a license. So I can only assume the director did have a forklift license. I assume they would have said that in court. But given that he had the poor practice, the court said, we want you to go off and do a course. And I don't know of any forklift course other than the forklift license course. So I'm assuming he's
Yeah,
going to
I
have
can't recall all that
yeah,
detail.
I think he's
But
going to have to do the course for a license
probably have to
again.
do the license course.
Yeah,
What I thought is important to note with this incident of manslaughter is that he didn't breach any special new requirements to be convicted of the manslaughter. He
yes,
breached existing requirements that already existed under the Act and regulations, and WorkSafe have simply chosen to use the new manslaughter
correct.
offence against them, seeing it has greater penalties. In
Yes.
the past, this I would think, I don't know what you think, Gary, is would have been eligible for reckless endangerment offence previously.
Correct. They would have been able to use Section 32, reckless endangerment. What they've used is Section 39G, the new section involving manslaughter where somebody actually dies, whereas reckless endangerment, they don't have to die, but they may well have done. So the company's got a $1.3 million fine, as I've mentioned, and the director a 2-year corrective order with 200 hours of unpaid work and to do a forklift course. So in Queensland, interestingly, involved a forklift. So Owens Electrical Motor Rewinds in Gympie, back on the 3rd of July in 2019, a large generator fell off the forklift tines. Does this sound familiar? So here's 2 accidents involving forklifts, involving the load falling off the forklift. The business owner and director was operating the forklift again, this time with no forklift license. So this is a clear breach, Andrea, of the regs as well as the poor practice. The court noted there was also no documented safety procedures, primarily around traffic management. So when they say no safety procedures as pertains to this accident. So the penalty, which was only just came through 2 years ago, March 2022, but you'll still notice each of these cases are about 3 years from the accident date to the conviction date to get through. The driver and business owner was sentenced to 5 years jail, suspended after 18 months. And so this is this is back in March 2022. And so in Queensland, they're actually at least sending people to jail. They haven't got a corrective services order that they have to match. So what's come out of this, Andrew, I thought to highlight what I've just mentioned. And this is really that everyone, hopefully, that's listening today, if you're involved, any of your business with forklifts, the 2 first manslaughter convictions have involved forklifts. Secondly, it was a senior manager or director driving the forklift. the person was either unlicensed or simply didn't know or remember or bother to follow good practice that they were shown in their course. In both cases, the load fell from the tines and a co-worker was too close and as a result was crushed and killed. This is really quite compelling, Andrea. So we all know, and so bear with me, the lessons. Have a traffic management plan. You are, in my opinion, grossly negligent to have forklifts and other mobile plant or vehicles operating on your site and you have no documented traffic management plan. So have a traffic management risk assessment and then a traffic management plan that comes from that. You need site-specific and comprehensive rules and procedures. You need to separate pedestrians and vehicles with physical separation where possible. If you can put in solid barriers, that's even better. Protection of pedestrian walkways solid where possible. But mind you, some of them, as you and I know, Andrea, will be temporary work sites like construction work sites. They can't have physical barriers. So you need to at least have pedestrian exclusion zones with large witches' hats, not the short ones that people say I didn't see, and tape around them and actually have clear, safe routes for pedestrians through the traffic area and something like 3 metre separation minimum from any forklift. You'll see in the image there, some of the models are now having laser lights down showing the zone, the clear zone around the forklift, although on the image here, it doesn't look 3 metres out, Andrea, but I'm showing you the laser lights rather than the distance. Some of our clients are putting this 3 metre keep clear sign on every side of their forklift, so it's clear for the pedestrians. And if the pedestrian doesn't obey the rule, the forklift drivers have got to be instructed to simply stop, refuse to move until the pedestrian gets out of their 3 metre exclusion zone or back into the pedestrian zone. So they're the key things, I think.
And I think, yeah, again, Gary, the reminder is that, the existing regulations, had these businesses followed the existing regulations that would have protected the life of the worker.
Absolutely.
Something else some of our best practice clients do is actually use alternative vehicles where a forklift is not actually required. So for small loads using, pallet trolleys or,
Yeah.
stock chasers and, other less dangerous vehicles when you don't need something with the capacity of a forklift. So that's something to think about.
That's right. I remember our good friends over at Boeing Aircraft Company that worldwide wanted to either eliminate or minimise forklift usage. You may recall a large traffic management risk assessment we assisted them with to try and move down that path. And we know it's not easy, but as Andrew just said, you've really got to think about if you can use safer vehicles to do that. And I think in one of those cases, from memory, they could have used a crane to unload the truck, but they used the forklift and it's fallen off the tines. So there's the common elements and the risks. So just turning to economics of safety, bear with me. This is extracting what I could from a book that's not about workplace safety. So economics of safety from Thomas Sowell. He really talks about a whole variety, and he's an economist. So this is about what works for economics in a country, in a business. What I found interesting, because I see examples of this in workplace safety occasionally, Andrea, how people get unpopular programs approved. They use nice sounding terms like social justice, or we need this for equality. We need it for fairness and equity. You'll hear this all the time now. And that's a generality. And what he says is beware of generalities. People are actually disguising something that may not warrant it or be unpopular to get it through because you're going to find it hard to argue against. He then goes on to say, who can argue against more health, more safety? Who can argue against clean air or clean water or more open space? This is lovely, he said, but they're open-ended fallacies in the sense you can always do more if you had unlimited resources. But he points out resources in every business, including government, are always limited. So even governments have to set a budget for the year and say, we can't afford 20 more hospitals or 20 more schools, but we can build 2 a year. And so we're not going to build 20, but we'll build 2 each year additional. So there's always a limit. So what do we learn from this in safety? I think we've got to be more professional and help our clients and help your business to actually do a good risk assessment and say, is that the best use of our available resources? And so look at that. And the other one, because you and I discuss this all the time, Andrea, about culture and changing behaviour. And Thomas Sowell has understood this, and he said, some people think when you put a new safety rule or procedure in, it's just like moving a chess piece on a board. It's really easy. I've got a new rule. I've told you about it. You'll do it. And he says that's not how humans work. And I think we know that while we do our safety leadership training, where we show some practical techniques to how to change behaviour. So all frontline supervisors and managers need some safety leadership training, and I'll come to that. And just finish off with Thomas Sowell. He says the zero-sum fallacy. And there were some people, was it Steve Jobs, which one did he start? Was that Microsoft, or I think it was? They're angry. Even when he died, he had billions of dollars. No one individual should have billions of dollars or hundreds of billions. And so they think they must be worse off if somebody else is rich. And what Thomas Sowell points out as an economist is, yes, he became extremely wealthy, and hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever it is. And there's a handful of those people in the world. But if they've created wealth through the products and services, so the world is trillions of dollars of best off economy because the efficiency of email, internet connection, and all what we're doing right now with a webinar online, the ease and convenience that we can do that has come out of Microsoft, Apple, and many of those IT products. So creation of wealth is not limited. So don't get angry at those that get rich. Work out how you can create something that will add to productivity and people will want to buy it. So it's as simple as that, if you like. So barbecue wire brushes, I wasn't sure what it was about, and I spoke to Sarah of our team, and the risk she pointed out was wire bristles can come loose and be ingested. And there was a case of a young child who ate some food off the barbecue, which had one or more loose wire bristles in the food that came from the barbecue. So briefly, purchase with secure bristles, and if you're not sure, try and pull the bristles out, test it, and make sure the bristles are sturdy. Inspect for loose bristles before each use. Check the food, have a quick check, but also maybe better, consider safer utensils. So if you can get rid of the wire brush and just use scrapers and other cleaning utensils, that might be safer, given that you now know some of these bristles over time will eventually come loose. So there's the one for barbecues while we've still got warm weather coming up. And we're coming up to the end of our session. A reminder, we've just completed our last 2-day safety leadership course back in February, and it was very popular. And so if you've got key people in your business, all frontline supervisors and frontline managers need the help and support of something like this. So consider that our 2-day course, which is our foundation safety leadership course, get it in your diary or book people in. Tuesday the 18th and Wednesday the 19th of June. Seems a long way out, but if you've got enough people, we can run it in-house for you and give you a quote. So let's do the questions of the week before we finish off. So what legally constitutes a trip hazard? And some people have said to me, Andrea, outside you've told me you went up a dirt road, and so you'll have potholes and you'll have loose stones and rocks. Are they a slip or trip hazard? So the first thing is, and another session will tell you what a slip hazard is. Today, we're just talking about trip hazards. So a trip hazard essentially is when your foot catches on an obstruction, and because you're moving forward, you have momentum. And if your foot is held, you can't bring your foot forward for balance, and so you fall over. So that's essentially the trip hazard. So in short, a slip hazard is when the coefficient of friction, so there's something slippery on the floor, could be spilt milkshake or oil or something of that nature, and the foot slips, that's lack of coefficient of friction, or maybe it's some oil on the boots or loose sole. That's a different mechanism. So today we're just talking about trip hazard. So essentially, under the building regulations, so this is not my opinion, building regulations require the difference between floor surfaces inside buildings to be less than 5 millimeters different. So you got to aim for totally smooth floors, but they'll tolerate up to 5 mil. Beyond that, it will be legally regarded as a trip hazard, and supermarkets, shopping centres, offices, and buildings and companies could be either both prosecuted, but people are going to succeed under workers' comp anyway. So this is about when people are entitled to additional payments because they're going to sue whoever was negligent. So negligence would be greater than 5 mil. Outside of buildings, we've not been able to find any regulations, and don't believe there are any in Australia at the moment, but there are codes of practice and guidance, and that suggests 1 centimetre or now 10 mil. So a 10 mil gap, so those leads there will be at close to 10 mil. So put even a temporary mat if it's in a walkway over it. Watch the edges of your stairs. If they become loose or damaged or broken, that's the negligence and that's the trip hazard. And you can see there on the far left, loose cables running across a walkway is just a hazard in any event because you probably won't even see it and catch your foot. So that's the essence of it. So questions of the week. And can you use non-fluorescent high-vis? There is no regulation mandating fluorescent high-vis. However, the relevant Australian standards, which is in our March newsletter, if you want to look it up, can tell you. So I'll find it here at my fingertips. So Australian standard AS 1906 is on safety PPE garments. And if you want to know the colours, is in, there was another standard. AS 4602 gives guidance. So what they recommend is, where possible, use fluorescent high-vis. And you can see there in the diagram on the right-hand side there, much greater visibility of people, either in light clothing and secondly with reflective. So the middle image there is not only high-vis, but with retro reflective strips. So there for night, they'll do nothing during the daytime. Those retro reflective strips are no more brighter than the orange that you see. So there are cases where you can't use fluorescent. So for example, natural fibres like cotton will not take the fluorescent dyes, and yet people who do welding and hot work, so there's a number, it could be near a furnace or something of that nature, and welders, they can't use the nylon fluorescent high-vis. It's going to catch fire too easily, so they're too flammable. So don't make them wear the fluorescent high-vis. They need to have...
And this is, of course, why maintenance personnel are typically wearing the cotton orange top, which is not
Correct. Not
fluorescent.
So where you have a safety reason, primarily flammability, people will need to have the cotton and other natural fibres, which won't take the fluorescent high-vis. But for other people, it's highly recommended, if you're going to have high-vis for traffic management, we spoke earlier about forklifts, the fluorescent is ideal, but it is not a legal requirement. So if it's infrequent, the risks are low. You might have other light colours which are not fluorescent. You won't be charged with a breach of an act or regulation. But if challenged later, you have had brighter colours or fluorescent? If you could have, you should have in high traffic areas. So consider that as additional over the top.
Gary, and I would share what our best practice clients are doing is actually looking for, to eliminate the need for the PPE altogether. Such as fully separating the pedestrians and the traffic, so you don't even need to wear high visibility at all.
That's it. And a few people have added their comments in as well of what they've already been doing for some time. So thanks for that, team that have people have added comments in there. So we've just gone past our time. So thank you for your patience, everyone. Thanks, Andrea, for dialing in from up at King Lake. So thank you for joining us and your support. We always appreciate it. So we've got a revised date for the next webinar. It's just a week earlier than normal. So it'll be Friday, the 5th of April. And I believe it'll be Andrew and I will join you again. We might have Dr. Webber, Stephen Webber, join us as well if he's able to. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate you joining us. Hope you got something out of today's session. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andrea. Safe
Thanks,
drive back to
Gary.
the
I'm about
office.
an hour away, so I'll see you back
Okay.
at the office.
Okay. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for
Bye,
your
everyone.
comments, everyone.
Okay. Bye.